Greetings, intrepid adventurers of the internet, and welcome to Scream&bolt. I'm your host, Silverbolt.
And I'm Screamer.
Last time, we looked at the first part of the two-part miniseries of the 1990s TV show, It. And today, we're going to be looking at the second part. We open as Bill arrives in Derry and makes his first stop to the grave of his brother George. And it doesn't take long for the head fuckery to start. Pennywise shows up, apparently knowing that Stan is dead, but not that Stan was a Jew, and therefore wouldn't have a cross on his grave. Something it wasn't aware of in the book. No, Mike knew and told Bill.
So we're back to more random-ass powers, and Pennywise, once again, not taking this opportunity to kill one of its enemies, and the leader of its enemies at that. Now in the book, this is explained about the fact that Pennywise wanted the losers to get together. It wanted them to remember it, remember why they were so afraid of it, and then kill them.
In the miniseries, however, it just messes with them. Mike and Bill go back to Mike's house, where Mike shows Bill that by a quirk of coincidence, he has bought Silver, Bill's old bike. Mike also explains that there was some kind of force guiding them that summer that gave them some kind of power to help them defeat it.
This is also true of the book. The It creature wasn't the only being of power established in the novel. You had the turtle, which was later named Maturing. And he gives the losers the knowledge on how to use the ritual of Chud, or Chud, however you wish to pronounce it. There is also the being Gan. Now, Gan is again established much later in the Stephen King multiverse, and is like the overall god figure. Here, he's just referenced as maybe the one that's giving the losers their power. Pennywise never refers to these other creatures, really. He just calls them the other.
But in this, Mike just says it, and there's no real mention of it again, apart from when the losers are all together, and it doesn't really have any kind of bearing on the plot.
A rather flustered Richie then bumps into Pennywise, and Tim Curry once again just shines in this over-the-top, chewing the scenery, hammy, diabolical clown routine.
Don't you want a balloon?
Yeah, she flinched. Pennywise then warns Richie to leave Derry.
But again, why? This thing can affect reality. It is easily demigod level powerful. It's practically a Super Saiyan in the things that it can apparently do, but it just warns him to leave. Just kill them.
Well, as I was saying in the book,
and that's one of the biggest problems with this, is it almost requires you to have read the book to understand the source material. You can't use "it's explained in the book" as an excuse for lazy screenwriting. In the book, Pennywise's arrogance does work against it, as does its fear of another. It's never challenged, and she doesn't know how to deal with it. Here, Pennywise's actions are just nonsensical. She tries to scare them away instead of, I don't know, just dropping them in a black hole somewhere.
Also, should we be referring to Pennywise as she? I mean, in the book, yes, it is female. But there's no mention of that here.
Well, in that case, let's just enjoy Tim Curry.
Ben has also arrived in Derry, and he meets an actor's worst fear come to life. God-awful practical special effects in the form of a very stiff-looking skeleton. Oh, and then Pennywise just pops up on the side of the road.
Just kill them! It's Eddie's turn next, and he goes into his old pharmacy to meet up with his old pharmacist, Mr. Keene. And we get a flashback of Eddie as a child. Now, it turns out that Eddie doesn't actually have asthma. It's all psychosomatic, or it's not as bad as it's made out to be, and that the medicine that he uses is just tap water with a little bit of camphor thrown in. And this scene, I gotta say, is absolutely awful. The editing is terrible. It looks like a scene that was scripted to go on for much longer with more dialogue, and they just cut out about 2/3 of it. It's very badly paced, and it's just wonky, and it doesn't work. And yeah, it's probably one of the poorest scenes, editing and filmography wise, in the whole book, in the whole film. After this, we get another example of just how powerful an entity it actually is, where it creates, either in reality or just in Beverly's head, the illusion of a fully furnished apartment, complete with little old lady living there, Mrs. Kirsch. The scene, however, descends into horror as Mrs. Kirsch begins to deteriorate, and Beverly realizes that instead of drinking tea, she's drinking blood. In the book, it was liquid fecal matter. Mrs. Kirsch's final form is to become Zombie Dad, who chases Beverly out of the apartment. This scene is very good, and it plays an awful lot on the psychological horror of, is this real or is it not? Is it just in Beverly's head, or is this actually a full-on illusion created by Pennywise, or is Pennywise changing reality to suit his own whims? Except, once again, Pennywise shows that he has all the bark and none of the bite of an internet troll. Yeah, even I have to admit, it's a perfect trap. But in the book, it does happen again, and she gets away, so... The losers have arranged to meet at a Chinese restaurant, and one by one they all start to show up. And Richie has his own entrance, and it's suitably loud and brash.
Right, who got bald, who got wrinkled, and how many got chillin' got wings?
And to this day, I still have no clue what that line is. Hot chili got wings is what I get from it. So, anyone in the comments, feel free to tell us what it is that he says. The losers sit down for dinner, and I have to admit, this is one of my favourite scenes in the whole movie. It flows very well, and it's very natural. It's like the director just said to the cast, take the night off and go get something to eat. And then while they were eating, they just filmed them interacting with each other. They really genuinely come across as friends who are enjoying a meal and each other's company. But then they get slammed back to reality when the fortune cookies arrive, and each one has a different horror inside. The group retreat, return to the library, and this is where they find out that Stan is dead. This then leads to Bill remembering Stan's own encounter with the monster as a child. Stan sees a mummy in an old house. This is one of the biggest changes to the book, and one of the ones that I feel makes the least sense. You take the setting, which was Stan locked in a dark place with a monster, but you change the monster and you change the location. I never quite... In the book, Stan is locked in the standpipe and he sees two dead boys. Here, it's a mummy. The way Stan goes into that place and the way that Stan gets out of it is the same. But they changed the setting. To get out of it, Stan holds up his bird book like a shield and starts recounting off all the birds that he can remember. This is an allegory of faith, of belief. Stan is a person of order. He believes in the order of nature. He uses that order of nature to repel a creature of chaos, in this form, Pennywise. So he holds up his bird book like a shield, and it's a shield of faith, it's a shield of belief. It's Stan using his belief, either consciously or subconsciously, to repel the monster. And I suppose you've got a real problem with that. No, it makes absolute sense within the context of the miniseries that an act of faith, or belief, would stop it. would drive it away. Stan using his bird book as a shield, yeah, it works. But I've also read the book, so I understand it. And also, this bird's special power is never referenced again. And then Stan does make the reunion with the losers. Well, part of him does. His head does. In the fridge. And it's adult Stan, not boy Stan. I don't know how Pennywise knows what Stan looks like. Well, it turns on a blue light filter, throws some books around and gives them a golden shower. But at least it's doing something! The losers repel it through their power circle, and we cut to Juniper Hills, a mental asylum, and an adult Henry Bowers, played by Michael Cole. Henry is busted out by It in the form of the dead Belch, and Belch explains that It needs Henry, as Henry can get to the losers because he's alive, whereas It needs them to at least half believe.
Which they clearly do.
But that implies that they have to at least half believe for It's near omnipotent powers to work.
Yeah, so?
So which is it? Is it near infinite cosmic powers in an itty-bitty living space? Or are its powers grounded in the rules that the losers have to believe in it in order for them to work? The movie doesn't explain which. It keeps flip-flopping from one side to the other. First it says that it's a power of faith and a power of belief, but even when the losers have no real memory of it, it can still show up and fuck with their heads. And seeing as they later explain that the rest of the town is involved in it in some way, does that mean that they all believe in the monster, which is why it can affect them?
Good point. The movie doesn't really explain its powers, only that the loser's belief can affect it.
After a scene in which Mike gives the losers the lowdown on what's happening, and he also makes reference to that other power that guided them that summer, we then cut to Audra, who has followed Bill to Derry, as she stops for directions.
She meets some guy who turns out to be Pennywise in disguise, and he puts the magical deadlight whammy on her.
Hold on! Audra didn't half believe, fully believe, or not believe at all. She knew fuck all about this clown. So, if its powers require the losers to at least half believe, how was a woman who has no knowledge of this thing able to be grabbed by it? Obviously, you don't need to believe in the creature for it to affect you.
Well, it's hedging its bets. It takes Audra and gets Henry out of the mental asylum in order to stack the odds further in its favour.
Well, yeah, in the book it does the exact same thing, but here it seems able to go after everybody and anybody at once except for the main... Oh! They're protected by plot armour.
Exactly. The losers then take a little break from the exposition dump, and some of them go upstairs to get some things. Ben to get a shawl for Bev, Eddie to get some medication, and Mike for moral support.
Mike gets attacked by Henry Bowers, and Ben has a more intimate encounter.
Kiss me, fat boy.
Pennywise pretending to be Beverly. Ben runs out of the room, and he and Eddie help Mike, and in the process, Henry is killed.
Michael Cole here, I really think, deserves much more credit than he actually gets. He does a fantastic job as a slightly hammy, psychotic Henry Bowers. He's only got a few lines, but he's clearly giving it everything, and it works really, really well. I mean, his facial expressions alone are pure gold.
Two things!
Oh boy, here we go.
One, here we see another great example of Pennywise's near omnipotent powers. He knew about the poem that Ben wrote to Beverly as a child. Now, you could argue that it got that from influencing the father's mind, something that happens in the book. However, the father didn't know who wrote the poem because Bev didn't know who wrote the poem. So how does Pennywise know it was Ben? Secondly, this is another great example of Pennywise having the perfect opportunity to kill one of them and doesn't. And at this point, they're all back together. They all remember it. They all know what's going on. And yet, it literally has Ben in its arms, and instead of necking him, it should tear out its throat. His throat. But it doesn't. And because of it, directly because Pennywise is still fucking with the losers instead of taking them out, it actively gets its cat's paw killed. I've said it before, this is a piss poor monster.
Well, it could have been one of its glamours.
But why use a glamour? It doesn't need to use a glamour. They believe by this point. Don't go in there and crack a fucking joke. Go in there and rip his throat out.
Plot armor, dude.
Oh, blow me!
Now there's an image. After some soul searching and much hand wringing, the 5 remaining losers finally decide that they're going to go down into the sewers to finish it once and for all. Mike gives Bill the stones that they used as children. Apparently Mike had gone down into the sewers to get them at some point. Not in the book. Bev, somehow, still has her own catapult, having saved it from the old days, which makes no sense. The group enter the sewers, and following Georgie's boat, come up against a small door that is well beneath the tunnel network of the Derry sewer system. Which is where we get the most infamous scene of all, the giant Muppet spider final boss. Now, in the book, it is explained that the human brain cannot perceive what it actually is. Our minds simply cannot register the deadlights. So when the losers go into its lair to fight it one final time, it takes on the shape of a most primordial fear of all, the giant spider. The miniseries, however, it just looks dumb and clearly low budget. And any tension the scene might have had is just completely ripped away by just how bad the special effect is. Bev takes aim at the creature and misses. Her second shot just bounces off its armor. Bill, Richie, and Ben are all caught in its deadlights, and all hope seems lost. Until Eddie, recreating the actions of what he did as a child, shoots the spider with his asthma inhaler. My God, that sounds incredibly dumb. Unfortunately, it doesn't appear to have any effect. The spider reaches down, and Eddie is killed. But it does give Bev time to find one of the missing stones and shoot it straight into the deadlights. This forces the creature to retreat. Refusing this time to just take the chance that it might be dead, the 4 remaining losers chase after it, push it over, and pull out the spider's heart. After rescuing Bill's wife from the giant spider webbing, the group retreat to the surface, carrying Eddie's body with them. After this, we get an epilogue monologue from Mike explaining the respective fates of the losers. Audra, trapped within the deadlights, needs a little something to get her out of them. So Bill drives down a big hill, which apparently, I'm guessing, scares the shit out of her so much, it wakes her up. To be fair, that's what he did in the book as well. So this draws the miniseries to a close with a final spooky laugh from Pennywise. Personally, I think this film absolutely butchers Pennywise. The writing is so inconsistent in regards to the creature's powers that it's just all over the place, and it really dilutes the threat of the monster once you actually stop to think about just what it's doing. It has ample opportunity to kill the losers, but it just doesn't. I love this movie. It's got its flaws, but it's got some great characters, great performances, particularly from Tim Curry and Jonathan Brandis, and some very memorable lines, and it stays with you. In the movie's favour,
There is a reason why the killer clown trope exists, and a lot of it boils down to Tim Curry's portrayal as Pennywise. He is easily the best thing in this movie, and by far the most memorable. His performance is terrifying, hammy, cheesy, funny, and it is a masterpiece of on-screen, over-the-top ham acting that even Jack Palance would struggle to pull off. The movie itself, well, the miniseries itself, was a financial success. It was made on a budget of $12 million, which in movie terms is nothing. But in TV terms, in 1990, it was really something. Because it's a made-for-TV movie, it's hard to judge just how financially successful the film is. However, the fact that it is still with us, still so well regarded, still so quotable, still so meme-worthy, shows that it is a highly successful film. And it is well worth a watch, despite my misgivings about it.
Tim Curry is undoubtedly the best part of this movie. And aside from a few hokey line deliveries, and let's face it, that's probably brought on by the script.
Why does it hate? Why is it so mean?
This film holds up. It's definitely worth you checking it out. To echo the title of Crimson Rogue's show, the book was better. But you should still give this movie a watch. I'm surprised he hasn't done this yet. Join us next time when we take a look at the 2017 release of It. And remember, just because you think a movie is good, doesn't mean it can't be bad. Just because you think a movie is bad, doesn't mean it can't be good. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.